everyone, Amber here from Majestic. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is another Marathon Sewciety sewing marathon here on YouTube. So please check my description. I have links for all the videos before and after mine. Today we are sewing up the Juno wallet from SewGnar. So thank you so much, Nicole, for allowing us to sew up your amazing pattern. I'm absolutely obsessed. I chose to make mine out of Portuguese cork. It was actually all scrap pieces that I had remaining. I chose to use spring snaps. On the back, I included the zipper pocket, and it features this really cool gusset. This was a new technique for me, and I really loved learning that new skill. You do want to choose a material that you can leave the edges raw. I chose to edge paint mine, or you could just leave them raw. On the inside, there are 16 card slots. Absolutely love that because I carry a ton of junk in my wallet all the time. And there are 2 pockets that are long enough to fit bills. For my wallet, I did not add the optional D-ring and wristlet, but there are instructions in Nicole's pattern to include that. So I really hope that you enjoy my tutorial. I will have all the information for Nicole's website, Facebook, all her social media and how to find her, as well as links to the other sewists participating today. And I do include timestamps in all my patterns, so if there's a particular part that you are looking for, you can jump ahead. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments. And also, if you could please like, follow, subscribe, I would absolutely love it. It helps my channel grow. And I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks. Okay, so I have all my pieces laid out. I am using cork for all of it except for the pocket linings. I decided that I was going to use leftover pieces of cork that I have. So this is like a really great scrap busting project. I just chose colors that matched. So I have my exterior with the pocket cut out already. I used my Cricut to cut this because I really like that nice even line for the box. If you are using your Cricut, just be mindful when you ungroup the files that there are little marks, circles for like the holes for the snaps. Those can be moved, so you're gonna have to like regroup them. So I definitely suggest testing on like a piece of paper or cardstock before using like any expensive material, just to make sure you're getting the result that you want. So I have my lining piece, my 2-piece A's for the cards, 6 card slots. They come with 3 versions of card slots. I chose the rounded one. There's also a V-shaped and a straight edge. I have the centerpiece. This is where we're going to be lining up our card slots on. So it is cork. On the back side, I had the lines marked already. My zipper gusset piece and my 2 linings. I have interfaced them already according to the instructions, as well as interfaced my main lining panel. I used Decaville Light for this. This was the most sturdy item that I had on hand. So the other thing that we're going to do before we start anything is depending on the cork. So for example, this teal cork has a thinner, lighter backing, and the gray has a thicker black backing. And so depending how sharp your blade is or however, sometimes you can get like little tiny fuzzies across the ends. So the first thing that I do after cutting is I'm going to take my lighter, the fan's blowing it, but basically I'm going to take my lighter and go all the way around the edges to burn off the fuzzies. It's actually like most noticeable on the darker. So if you look really close, like you may be able to see that there's like little black fuzzies sticking out. The other thing that you might want to do is we are leaving our edges raw, which is fine with cork because the cork part does not fray. But I have found that the back is usually either a cotton material or a cotton poly mix, and it can fray. So I am going to coat all my edges. So first I'm going to burn all the little fuzzies, and then I'm going to use a base coat to coat all the edges. And some of it I'm going to be edge painting, at the end, the sides of the wallet. But that step really, if you want to do it, you have to do it beforehand for the like card slots and such. So I'm actually going to do it on all of my pieces because I do not want the possibility of anything fraying from the back side. Okay, so as far as material and tools, I have my zipper tape cut a little bit longer because it's also a remnant, and one pull. I am using a size 5. I have this snap kit here that I'll be using. I'm using Tex 35 thread from Wizardry Stitchery, as well as clips. I have a handheld hole punch, snips, some double-sided tape. I'm going to be using a 9014 Microtex needle. I have the silver marking pen, chalk pen, a stiletto seam ripper combo, as well as my edge painting tool. And I'm going to be using base coat and paint from Mojo Sews. And I don't have the top coat because I still had so much Giardini left. But once I'm done with that, I'll be buying from Mojo Sews. So that is what I'll be using. If there's anything else, I'll let you know as we go along. So I am using some base coat from Mojo Sews and a roller tool from Amazon. And I am just edge coating the raw edges around the zipper box. And I'm also going to do the card slots. I'm not doing the full series of edge painting. This is to kind of just seal the edges in so that way none of the backing frays. Okay, so I am starting with my card panel back, my 2 piece A's, the card panel A, and then my 6 card slots. If you want to top stitch across, this one we're going to sew, so you don't need to do that. But if you wanted to top stitch across here, and just for that look, you can do it. It's literally just cosmetic. So I'm not going to top stitch. I'm going to get building right away. So on this card panel back, I'm taking my piece A and I'm lining up the long sides together to the top. And I'm really taking my time because I want to make sure it is lined up on the top and on the sides. I did cut these by hand, so they might be a little bit off. Nicole has a little bit of leeway built into the pattern, so you can trim it after if need be. And so I'm clipping mine. And so whatever we're doing to one side of our card panel, we are doing to the opposite. So I'm going to do both sides at the same time and bring it to the machine and sew both at the same time. That way I'm not just repeating the process. And I'm choosing a clip. Nicole says you could use glue or double-sided tape, but I don't have any skinny double-sided tape. My machine doesn't really like double-sided tape. So I am just clipping mine. And I'm really taking my time to make sure that this is lined up. So when I look from the back, I see a tiny bit of the lining side, or yeah, the back side of it. But that, like I said, can all be trimmed after. And one more thing to note while I'm doing this is I'm lining up the top, but it's also really important that our bottom is lined up with our horizontal lines we drew, because we are going to be using that afterwards to line up the rest of our card slots. So I'm actually going to adjust this one a tiny bit because I think it's more important to have this lined up and then trim out the top later, especially if we're gonna have the straight edges here. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this to the machine and I'm gonna top stitch only along the top of each of these panels here, or I guess it would be the top, and then if we flip it, the top here. And I'm gonna use a top stitching length and back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, so I have just top stitched along both sides. So now we need 2 of our card slot pieces, and we are going to line them up with the first drawn line. Should also be the bottom of this card panel A. And just take your time. You want to make sure that it is straight along the bottom and that our edges line up, because it is a raw edged wallet. It's really important that everything kind of stays straight on the side. And I'm making sure that they are straight along this line, so that way when I go like this, it's the same distance. And if you want, you could even take like a ruler just to make sure that they are the same on both sides, because once we start stitching, you're not going to be able to move them. And we're going to repeat for this other side here. And again, I'm just taking my time. I'm kind of holding it like up towards me so I can see. Okay. And again, I'm clipping it in place. If you wanted to use tape, you could, but if it's too thick, it will get in your card slot. So I just prefer to clip, right? And so now we're going to take this to the machine and we are going to top stitch along the bottom panel. Right, so I have just top stitched along the bottom of each. So now we need to put our next card slot, and we're just repeating the same process, just moving down to that next line. And again, I'm just really taking my time, making sure that it's matched up and that it looks even between each card slot, and flipping the edge. Okay, and then we're going to take this to the machine and again stitch along the bottoms here at that top stitch length given in the pattern. Okay, so I have just top stitched down the bottom of this card slot. So now we are adding our last 2 and repeating that same process of lining everything up. And they are starting to get a little thick, so just be mindful of that. And again, I'm still just clipping on the sides. Okay, and again, we're going to bring it to the machine and top stitch on the bottoms of each card slot. Okay, so now we have a couple different things going on. I have just stitched the bottom of the last of my card slots. So now I have my card panel B here, and this is a rectangle. So if you haven't already, if you have done cutouts, you're going to want to cut out each side so it matches. I have also marked the midpoint line that I am going to line up with the midpoint line that I drew on here, and in chalk I've already done a stitch line down the center. So first I'm going to line up my midline on each side, and just adding some clips on the edge too to hold down that card slot. And then I'm making sure that it's matched up on this side. And same thing, I'm going to clip it in place. So now what we're doing is we are going to stitch our centers. And it looks like my chalk lines are a little bit off here. So I'm going to remeasure, get my actual center, and draw my chalk line again. Okay, so I have remeasured and found my exact center. So now I'm going to take this to the machine and we're going to top stitch down the center, starting at the top card slot and ending at the bottom. We are not stitching all the way up. I am going to backstitch really well at the beginning and the end. And Nicole also mentions giving a little backstitch on the top of each card slot, just because these are going to get pulled on and to add a little bit of strength to them. Okay, so we have just top stitched down the center here, and I like using chalk because it just comes off so easy. This is just like a baby wipe, but you could use like just literally water. So I just removed the line. Now Nicole does recommend putting some double-sided tape along the edges here or some glue to hold these down. My machine hates double-sided tape, so I'm not going to do that. I'm hoping that this isn't going to shift too much when it comes later on that I have to sew. But yeah, she definitely recommends holding these down at some manner. The other thing that is optional, but I am going to do, is this here. Now we have two pieces of cork together. So see our backside and then our card slot front. First of all, both of my corks have different colored backing. And this is an example where I wouldn't leave this raw. So for example, the card slots, it's one layer. It's not really noticeable. They all happen to have the brown backing. So this one I am going to edge coat. So I'm going to show you the full process of that. So again, I'm using the Mojo Sews base coat. I have two little cups here that I just flip over so I can rest it on after. So even though I already put some base coat on this before I did anything with these pieces, I'm still going to do it again because you want a nice smooth layer. And because now it's two pieces of cork, I want that edge coat to kind of seep between the two. So my preference is for putting the base coat on rather thick. But again, test it out on a scrap or, practice on some scraps first or something that's not really like too important to you. It does take a little bit of practice. But like I said, this roller tool, I think is like key to getting really nice coverage. When I tried to do it with just like a paintbrush or something, it came out terrible. Okay, so I'm going to do this for both sides. Sometimes I put 2 coats. I'm probably going to put 2. So I'm going to do the other side real quick and then let this dry. And then I'll come back and show you the next step. And I'm going to do this part off camera. Okay, so I put 2 coats of base coat on my edges. And it's drying to the touch. I've had it sitting here about an hour. It's probably been dry quicker than that, but I was doing other things. So now I'm going to put my paint on, and I'm using this hot pink from Mojo Sews. And again, I'm just using this roller and going very carefully. I love the roller, especially for the paint. It puts it on so even, and really like the grooves in this roller make it so it doesn't drip. I do have a baby wipe here in case it does get on my cork and I need to try to wipe it off. I'm going kind of brave with putting the hot pink on. because it doesn't blend with the side. It's like gonna contrast and really pop. But go big or go home, right? And I absolutely love this color. It looks great. I actually think I might only need one coat. So depending, I'm gonna see how it looks when it dries. So depending, I put anywhere from 1 to 3 coats of any of the layers. So it could be the base coat, the top coat. Base coat I want basically so it's thick enough that if there's any bumps, it covers it. You can sand between layers. I'm terrible at it, and I always sand off whatever layer I'm working on. So I don't. I just put my coats thick enough that it kind of smooths out on its own. So I'm going to finish this one here, and I'm going to wait to see if it needs a second coat or if I want to add a second coat on. And then once that's dry, I'm going to put the glossy top coat on. So again, I'm just going to set it here and let it dry. All right, so I have put 2 layers of the paint on both edges. They're now dry. It's probably been about a half an hour between each coat. So now I am going to put the top coat on. I'm using Giardini Gloss. There's also a matte. I'm just using this and not Mojo Sews because I have this giant bottle left and I didn't want it to go to waste. But Mojo Sews also makes a gloss and a matte finish. My number one recommendation is if you're going to do edge coating, you need all 3 steps. And I'm putting this on the same exact way I did the base coat, nice and evenly over the top. And because I had put all those layers on before, it's going on smoothly. But yeah, so you need all 3 layers. Otherwise, like if I just left it with the paint, this could very easily start peeling. The top coat really seals it in. So to me, it's all 3 coats or nothing. If you just do one of the steps, you're going to be really disappointed. I also am not a fan of like coloring the edges with a Sharpie or a marker. To me, any of that could wear off, even though it's like a permanent marker. It just doesn't have the same look. I'd rather leave my edges completely raw than put like marker or something on them. And like here I just did the base coat, and that's just to like keep the edges from fraying. So if you're not looking for like a finish, like a nice solid finish, if you're just looking to seal the edge, a coat of base coat, Mod Podge, glue, something like that would be fine just to seal in the edge. But if you want this nice finish, you need all 3 steps. And again, I'm just taking my time going over it. I'm going to let it dry. It probably is, I'll probably put 2 coats on of this one. And always wash your tool in between applications. Okay, so I have just put a second coat of the top coat on and let it dry, and I'm really happy with the end result. So we are all done with this piece for now, and I'm going to set it to the side because we are going to start working on our zipper. So the first thing that I'm going to do is add my pull, and I just open up the end. I start on the right hand side because I'm right-handed. I gently put it on, or slightly put it on, and then put my left side and kind of like try to balance it out and then push it. By doing that, it is even and doesn't give you like a bubble here. So I'm going to go off camera for a second because now that we have it on the left-hand side, we have to mark a measurement and we are going to fold down our zipper tape to prep it. So I'm just going to put the measurement off camera. Okay, so I have just marked on my zipper tape, and we have this little slit here where we're doing like a gusseted zipper pocket. So we need to prep our zipper for that. So I'm going to open up the top. I am going to fold it to the back on that marking so that wrong sides are together. And then with my left hand, I'm pinching the sides of the zipper tape and pulling up. So that way the fold goes right below the zipper teeth. And then I'm just clipping it there. On the back, it forms a little triangle. Maybe hard to see. So what I'm going to do is I take this to the machine and I sew it into place. I tack it down. You could use like a lighter. There's different methods. I find that works best for me. And how I do it is I put the needle down first, because if I don't catch this fold, it will open up underneath the machine. So I just put the needle down first and then just do a couple stitches along the edge to hold it in place. Okay, so we can see that the zipper teeth hang over slightly. So I am just going to trim that down so it's even with the edge of the zipper tape. And then I definitely recommend, if you take a lighter, I'm going to move it to the side. I have the fan on. So I just moved it to the side and I just singe the edge just so it doesn't fray on you once it is sewn in. So we have our zipper prepped ready to go. And so this is going to go in the back here like this. And so what we're going to do now is you could probably hold it in place and sew as, you know, give it in the directions. But I definitely recommend, and she recommends using double-sided tape. The only exception that I'm going to do is, instead of putting it right up to the edge of our box here, I'm going to put it probably like a 1/4 inch away from the edge, because my sewing machine hates double-sided tape and I don't want skip stitches. So I'm just moving this slightly out of the seam allowance. It will still be enough to hold down my zipper. So I'm doing along the bottom, the side, and the top. I'm not doing the side here where our gusset is. So now we're gonna attach our zipper, or stick our zipper from the front where this gusset is. When I place this, I do not want my zipper teeth here going past this gusset because you'll end up seeing them. So when I stick it, I need to make sure that it is about 1/8 of an inch, as small as possible, behind this gusseted piece here. So I'm going to remove the backing off all the double-sided tape. Okay, so once I have the double-sided tape exposed, I'm going to lay my zipper on my table, and I'm taking this and gently placing it over. I'm not sticking anything down yet. I am moving my zipper pull so it's up and through. And I'm going to try to center this zipper tape. And I'm using a size 5. So not a whole lot is showing. If you use a size 3, more of your zipper tape will show. And this looks pretty good. I'm hoping that when I sew this, I'm not going to have an issue with the zipper, with the teeth right there. So I'm going to stick this down because I'm really happy with how centered this looks. Okay, so from the front, it looks like this. From the back, it looks like that. And we're going to move on to prepping our lining for this. Okay, so now for our next step, I have the lining piece that has the on interface side. This edge here, I have folded and ironed. So that way I have a nice, it's not raw edged on this side. So then also I have put a piece of double-sided tape on the bottom zipper. This will also be out of my stitch line, and this is so that way I can hold the lining onto here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to align right side down this bottom edge with the zipper, and I'm aligning if you look closely, you can see the gusset here. I'm making sure that this edge is lined up with the edge of the gusset. And I'm just gently placing it down onto the double-sided tape. And then that way when we stitch it, if you want to double check, it's not going to show from the front. Our raw edge is lined up here with that gusset. Our raw edge of the gusset is lined up with the folded edge of our lining. Okay, so now that I have this stuck down with double-sided tape, and I'm double checking that it looks good from this side, I am going to take it to the machine and I am going to top stitch only along the bottom part here. I'm not coming down the gusset. I'm only stitching along the bottom of our box. I am going to start a little bit past this box, so that way when I come around with the top stitching later on, I'll be able to line it up here. And the other thing that I'm doing is I'm leaving my tails of my thread very long at the beginning and the end. I'm not going to backstitch here because I want to tie off my threads. So I'm just going to take it to the machine and do a row of top stitching across the bottom only. Oh, also making sure that our lining is up. That's very important. Don't let it fold down when you are doing that. Okay, so I have just top stitched along the bottom. It curved a little bit here. That's mostly because the zipper teeth shifted my foot and I didn't notice. But I'm not going to redo it because then it leaves holes and I don't think it's like super noticeable. So I have my tails long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this to the back side and use my stiletto, and I'm going to pull up on the thread and it creates a little loop here, and I'm going to pull that through to the back, and I am just going to usually I triple knot. You could also add some what's it called, the like the fray check, like it looks like this, onto the knot, especially if you're using like a woven material. You can burn it down, but I always get afraid that the knot is going to get burnt off. And normally I cut them kind of short, but Nicole recommended leaving them long, so I'm going to leave them a little bit longer than I normally do. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing for on this side over here. Okay, so I have just tied off both of the stitches. So on the front it looks like this, and you don't see any back stitching. So now I'm going to fold this down, and it should crease. You could even take like a little iron it if you wanted. Now our next step is we have to attach our zipper gusset. So in the video, Nicole uses double-sided tape here. I am a little worried that it is going to stick to my my needle. So instead, I moved the zipper. I'm lining up the short edge with the edge of my gusset. So the top of the short edge, and my cork is facing up. This is the wrong side. And I'm just going to clip it in place. And then that way, it's a little hard to see, but our folded edge of the lining is sandwiched between. So now we're going to take it to the machine, and we're going to start at the bottom and top stitch up to that end point here where our stitching ended. So I'm going to leave my tails long, and I am going to stop in the same exact hole that I ended for this one here. And we're only stitching along the inside of this gusset. We're not doing anything else yet. Okay, so I have just top stitched up the side here, and we're doing the same exact thing with pulling our tails to the back. The only difference is that, especially on this top one, this stitching is going to be seen. So we are going to tie it, but we are going to cut down and then singe our threads, hopefully really well, and that the knot doesn't get completely burned off, because we cannot leave these long, because like I said, it will be visible. So I'm going to trim them down kind of short, and then I might have to go off camera because the fan, just sin the edge real quick, and it burns them down so low that you can't even tell that it was tied off here. And then for the bottom one, we're going to do the same exact thing. Okay, so now the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to have to fold this and put it over here. We're going to have to stitch this eventually. So I am going to use double-sided tape for this, and I'm putting it on this outside panel. And again, I'm just putting it enough away that it's not in my stitch line. Okay, so I have just added some double-sided tape, and this backing today really doesn't want to come off. And so now we are folding this so right sides are together, and we're just overlapping it. We're going to align the bottom edge here to make sure it's straight, and then just stick it to that piece of double-sided tape. So it will look like this. So now we're ready for the next step of completing our zipper pocket. Okay, so we have just stuck our gusset to the side. And so now I have my other piece of lining that's interfaced. I am going to place it directly over the top, lining up the bottom edge, should line up with my lining. And I'm actually going to put a couple clips here to hold it in place. And then again, the sides should match up here with my zipper tape. And I'm going to clip that in place. Okay, so I kept the top unclipped because my zipper is taped down. So what we're going to do before we top stitch anything, we are going to take this in the machine, and I'm going to fold back the cork from the top, and I'm going to stitch along the right hand side of my pocket, pivot, move this up, and then stitch along the bottom, back stitching at the beginning and the end, making sure that I am closing up my zipper pocket. Okay, so I have just sewed the side and the bottom of the pocket closed. So now from the front, I am going to start at the bottom here in the same stitch, in the same hole where that stitch be ended, go across, all the way up the side, across the top, moving my pole out of the way, coming down the side and ending where that stitch began. And I'm leaving my tails long so I can bring them to the back again and tie them off. I have just top stitched all the way around. So now again, I'm bringing my tails to the back and tying them off. These we can leave long because you will not see these. Okay, so I have just finished tying off the threads on this back side. So this is what our zipper looks like. If we open it up, has the little gusset. So we have just finished up our zipper pocket. So now we need to add snaps. And we are adding, or I'm adding spring snaps. You could also do magnetic. So there are 4 pieces to a spring snap. The part that these here are going to go on the flap. So I don't need those 2 right now. I need this piece here that's kind of tall and has a hole in the bottom, and then the shorter version of that. So first I'm going to punch my holes. I just use a hand hole punch. It works fine for me. If you have trouble with like strength or anything, it might be a little bit more difficult, but for me, it's okay. And now that I've punched them, I had them already marked from the pattern piece. And the other thing is this does not have any interfacing on the back. So I just have some scraps of Decoville white that I am going to put just as an extra buffer for the snaps. So first I am taking the tall portion. I'm going to put it through my Decoville first, and then I'm going to put it from the back side up through to the front. And I'm just, when I clipped it, it didn't come out all the way. So I'm just going to trim this piece here that's kind of still stuck. There we go. Just so there's nothing in the way. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side because we have 2 snaps. And now these are from a kit that I have on my Amazon list. They work fantastic. So now the little portion is going to go on top. So I'm just setting them on top for right now. And so this is the kit, and it comes with the tools to hand set it. So here's the base, and then you flip it over for the other side because the bottom and the top require different tools. And the same thing. Here's for one that has like a indent here, and then this one is a more pointy end. So what I'm going to use is I've used it with a hammer. I've used these with my arbor press, but I recently just bought the dies, and I got the dies from Amazon for my cam snap press. So I don't need these 2. These 2 are for the caps, the one that has the point and the indent here. So I'm going to put them aside. This one has the hole that fits perfectly on top of our snap. So that goes into the top of our press. And don't feel like you have to get a press. I did not have one for years. This was a recent Christmas present. And it does work great. But like I said, I've used an arbor press. I've used hammer. They both work fine. And then for the bottom here, we have the one that has a little point because that is going underneath. that sets in fine. So what I do is I'm going to line up, place my snap on there, make sure that it is in the hole underneath, and then gently just press down, and you'll feel it snap into place. Okay, so it got stuck for a second, but I pulled it off. We have just added our first snap here. So now we're going to repeat for the other side, and since I've already showed you once, I'm going to do it again off camera. Okay, so we have our exterior panel here with the flaps. So I'm going to flip that over, and now we are going to add our lining and our card slot panel. So in the instructions, it says to put the lining on first, and then clip it, and then put the card slot panel on. Because of our snaps and the zipper, it makes it a little bit bumpy, so I'm going to put this on first. So in the instructions, she gives you a measurement from the bottom. So the top here is our flap. It has that smaller piece of stabilizer. So we are going from the bottom, and I'm just going to measure it off camera so I don't give away the measurements, and then clip the edges. Okay, so I have measured from the bottom the given measurement and have clipped it into place. There are also 2 measurements given that we are going to have to draw for when we top stitch those sides. So I drew them in now because I just found it easier than when all of it is together. So once you have your lines drawn, your card slot panel attached, now we are going to take our lining and match it up with our exterior. So just make sure that your flap portion is aligned with the top. You don't want to reverse this accidentally. So what I'm going to do is I'm not unclipping the sides. I'm going to start at the bottom and line the bottom up first, and then line the top. And it might get a little bit funky because we have clips on the side, we have our snaps, we have our zipper. So I'm just kind of maneuvering it. Once I get the top and the bottom aligned, then I'm going to do the sides. And then if I need to shift anything, I will. So see, now that I have the top, the top and the bottom aligned, the sides kind of fall right into place. So I can just use the same clip that's holding my card slot panel, pop it off, and then pop it on. So the rest I'm going to do off camera. I'm just going to take my time, really try to line up these edges because this is a raw edged wallet. We can trim a little bit after, but I really want everything as aligned as possible. All right, so I have clipped everything together, and now we are going to start our final top stitching. So I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to start over here, and I am going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. You probably will see that on the back side, but it's really important. I'm going to back stitch also over the card slots just to hold everything in place. And I'm going to be stitching with the lining facing up, and we're going to stitch down to this bottom line, come across and back up and around. Just being really mindful, if you look from the side, it does get kind of thick over here, and so I might hand crank over this as well. Just finished top stitching around the top. I'm pretty happy with how it came out, especially because it's so thick and I'm sewing on a domestic. So you can see, if you look super close, some of my stitches are a little bit smaller. Maybe if I hand cranked more, it would have been even. But honestly, like if I'm looking at it like this, it's not really that noticeable. So the other thing too is it does kind of come in a little bit here with the thickness. Some of it shifted a tiny bit, so I'm going to trim this down at the end. So I'm not worried if it moves like a tiny bit here. So now we are going to repeat the same exact process, except we are sewing the bottom and we're coming up to that top line with the chalk. And so our stitches are going to overlap on this small section right here. Just finished top stitching along the bottom. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It looks great from the, well, what will be the front side as well. So now what I'm going to do before I add the final snaps or any edge coat, I'm going to look and see. If you look from the top, you can see the brown. That is from the lining here. And I'm going to trim any of that off my sides. So that way they're nice and straight. There's nothing uneven about them. And you don't want to trim too much. My top looks pretty good, but like I said, I'm going to do the sides, and it might be a little bit difficult with the snaps in place. So I just have this little cutting mat here, and I am going to set it down, and then I just take one of my rollers and line it up with the edge, and then use my straight edge to go across, and trying to do it in one big go. Okay, so I tried to show a little bit of how I shape up and trim up the edges. So I'm pretty happy they're mostly even. So now we have two final steps. We have to put our snaps on for the top flap, and then edge coat or edge paint the entire wallet. So what I'm going to do is I'm switching out the dies from the other side. So now I need the round, wider base and the cap that has the pointy part. And then we need our other pieces of our snap. And I have already had my holes marked. So again, I'm going to hand punch them. Okay, so this is going to be on flap, and it's going to fold down, and the wallet is going to look like this. So it's going to snap into place. So I need the flat cap on the exterior side. And I didn't put any interfacing before I put this together, because this happens to fall where there's already interfacing on the lining. Okay, so now that the caps are on the outside, I am putting this rounded one that has the hole through the center. That goes on top. And again, so this cap is just going to sit flat on our press. And I kind of hold it there and down. And it has worked perfect. I'm going to just do the other side real quick while I'm right here. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this looks, and I'm going to start my edge painting. Alright, so I have my base coat all ready to go and my tool, but I do want to show you. So now, this is a little bit different from when we did our bill slip pocket here. When we edge coated that, it was only 2 layers. Here it has much more, especially when we get to the card slots. So I want to make sure I'm really putting that on. I will probably end up doing at least 3 layers of base coat, because I like to put mine on thick and make sure that it fills in those gaps between the layers. That is really key to making sure that you have a smooth coat, that those creases are getting filled in. So other than that, the steps are the exact same as I did for the card slot top. So I'm going to continue this in time lapse. I have just put multiple layers around the sides. You can see this is where it got pretty thick with the card slots. So I did 4 layers of base coat, and I put it on very generously. You could see like the white, it's all dry, but you can see how thick it is. And I prefer that instead of sanding through each layer. To me, it gives it a nice smooth coat. And now I'm going to do the edge paint the same way that I did the card slot top pocket here. So I'm going to do that off camera because I've already explained previous how I do it. And I'll probably put 2 coats on to match, as that's what I did for this part here. Okay, so I have just finished up painting the edges with the pink paint. I did 3 coats for it. So now I am going to put the top coat on with the gloss. All right, so I have just put 2 layers of the glossy top coat on, and it's completely dry, and I think it looks amazing. So this finishes up our wallet. It folds together so nicely. I'm going to snap it and then show you. All right, so here we go. If we look from the side, it still has a very slim profile. It's not squishy at all. The zipper is perfect on the back with the extra gusset. I cannot wait to use it. Like I said, I did leave off the D-ring wristlet, but I will use this as a regular wallet. I'll never probably carry it as just like a clutch. So I hope you enjoy the video, and I can't wait to see if you make any of your own. All right, we have just finished up our wallet from SewGnar. Thank you again, Nicole, for allowing us to sew up your pattern. I am absolutely obsessed. I cannot wait to use this. I was so happy to use these precious scrap pieces of cork. I had so much fun applying the edge coat and learning a new technique with the zipper gusset. So thank you so much for this overall amazing pattern. I did not include the wrist strap portion, but if that is something that you would like to include, Nicole does have videos for it, and it's also written into the pattern. So let me know if you end up making the Juno wallet, and make sure to check out all the other videos for the Marathon Sewciety today. Thanks. Bye.